get first comments. Salman, the opposition is upset. Why is the opposition upset? Are you upset because Andhra Pradesh and Bihar were specifically named and the other states weren't? Nirmala Sitharaman argued in Parliament that every state can't be read out in the budget speech. The Congress should know. You've been presenting budgets for almost 6 decades. Why are you upset?
Barkha, obviously, politics will always be there, and it has a place in our democracy, and the government can pretty much do whatever it wants when it brings forward a budget. But, you really have to think about, this is now the 11th year in some ways of this government. 2 of the terms were under, basically, they were BJP governments. This one is an NDA government, and of course, there are political pressures. But we have to ask ourselves, what about the country? What is the economic framework that we are moving ahead with? You see, a budget is, it's an accounting tool, basically. But at the same time, it also sheds light about the thinking of the ruling party or the ruling establishment when you cumulatively look at what has happened over the last 10 years. And I think what has happened is that we're simply not building the kind of economy that works for most people in this country. We continue to, I think, in my opinion, and my party's opinion, we continue to have an economy that is, there is this hope that if we put all of our eggs in the basket of a few big businesses or big enterprises, big conglomerates, we can basically replicate what maybe the Koreans did or maybe the Japanese did. That's not going to work. Not for India. It's not going to happen. What is the message for the middle class in this budget? What is the message for the poorer classes? Is the message that now the biggest share of revenues comes from income taxes, the next biggest share comes from GST, and corporation taxes are now third? Is that the message? Or is the message that we should not be looking at the future, we should just be looking at, in fact, in an article in the Financial Express today, which I wrote, I said the politics of Bihar and Andhra Pradesh has basically received much more attention than 2 of the defining challenges that this country faces for the future, that is climate change and technological disruption. Please look at the budget. Please look at the budget. What are we doing? What are we doing for the people of this country? They have an opportunity. I mean, if they do well right now, maybe they can recover some lost ground. But I think they're on a very slippery slope now. I think they seem to be losing ground rapidly.
Okay, the images that we are seeing, or we just saw, were of opposition leaders galvanizing around Jagan Mohan Reddy. There you can see, and there is a sort of political churn happening. Jagan Mohan Reddy, earlier not willing to criticize the Modi government, now leading protests in the capital. So there are all kinds of political fault lines that are emerging, even as we talk about the budget. If we can come out of these pictures now, please, and go back to Ashwini Mahajan ji, Ashwini ji. So the Swadeshi Jagran Manch is an ideological affiliate of the BJP, but not always on the same page. You have often differed with the BJP when it comes to economic policies. How do you see the budget? Do you believe that it's a kursi bachao budget? Do you believe that there has been disproportionate attention on 2 states? Do you agree with the increase in short-term and long-term capital gains? The fact that indexation of a property has changed? And Ashwini ji, आप mute पे हैं, अपने side से थोड़ा unmute कर दीजिए. Please go ahead. Yeah.
जी, I don't think the kind of message the opposition which is trying to give that this is Kursi Bachao budget. Actually, I think government could not have done better than this, given the problems being faced by the economy. As we all understand, after the 1991 new economic policy, we had been facing jobless growth throughout. Even Prime Minister Manmohan Singh ji has also said time and again that this is a jobless growth. So we need to create more jobs. Jobs can be created only by either by self-employment or by the salaried employment. In both these fronts, I've been meeting many corporates, and they have been saying, we are facing the problem that we are not getting the right people for the right job. So the way forward is that our unemployable youth could be made more employable, and this was the task which has been taken up in this. And
But do you believe the budget is focused on that? Because it talks about internship, but it doesn't actually talk about jobs at the same scale, Ashwini ji.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Employability is the major problem, as you understand, because today youth is not employable as corporates and the employers say. So to make them more employable, this is one. Secondly, time and again, this is that the Andhra and Bihar has been given. Uh, we understand that Bihar is at the bottom, and if something is given to Bihar for the development of Bihar, whether it is roads or it is uh, flyovers or the dam to be built, the wall to be built to save a big part of Bihar from the water being left from the Nepal side. We had been facing this problem since the change in the guards.
Yes.
So if money has been given to Bihar for this reason, so why we should object to it? Secondly, the Andhra Pradesh, uh, when Reorganization Act has been passed and it was very clear that the money had to be given. It was hardly 14,000 crores at that point of time. It was delayed and delayed, and now if for building of the new capital, if money is given, so that cannot be taken from the from उस चश्मे से नहीं देख सकते जो हम
जी तो
देखने
आप कह रहे हैं कि आपको कोई मेजर डिसएग्रीमेंट नहीं है नो मेजर डिसएग्रीमेंट्स इन द बजट अश्विनी जी बिफोर आई मूव ऑन
Yeah, yeah. In fact, I'm happy for the equalization of treatment to the foreign investors and the Indian investors by making tweaking this capital gain tax. So I have met many people in the past who had been always been saying that there is no level playing field for the domestic investors and the foreign investors, and the foreign investors having all the law, so all the
Right.
benefits. Therefore,
Okay.
I think this budget seems to be in the right direction in this regard.
So let me just bring in Rajat, because Rajat, even though you have, worked with BJP governments of late, you have been saying that the BJP needs to speak a language that young people in particular need to understand, and that communication needs to be much better. In terms of communicating to the young, do you think the budget succeeded, or do you think the budget is not material to young people? And in that case, what about jobs? What about unemployment? What about the fact that the major challenges before the government today, in terms of agitations, concern students and jobs? UPSC, NEET, and Agniveer. Rajat?
So I agree with you that there is some kind of a realization that has sunk in the government that yes, jobs is a problem. That realization in itself, is half the battle won by the BJP. The economic survey said that though the unemployment rate is at around 4%, but youth unemployment rate is 10%. That is what the economic survey said. So clearly, it is the young who are desperate to look for aspirational jobs. Even the jobs that are available, if you look at formal jobs, it is only 20%. There is almost 50% which is self-employed, self-employment related jobs, and the remaining around 30 odd percent are labor-related jobs. Now, neither is self-employment nor the labor-oriented jobs aspirational in nature. So essentially, only the 20% of the youth workforce is having some kind of a formal job. And I think this was the thing which was sort of nudging the government to include a line item around youth and jobs. I have not seen any other budget historically wherein a dedicated line item and a dedicated spending budget of around 2 lakh odd crore rupees has been earmarked exclusively to nudge the corporate India to induct the youth of this country into the formal setup. Government has said that if you do the EPFO registration, we will come in and add 3,000 rupees in EPFO contribution. Government's point of view is we need to create more aspirational jobs which are formal in nature, not do this tom-tomming around self-employment alone. That they have done for 10 years and it has not swung the narrative in its favor at all. And this is what I have been maintaining, that Eastern India, states like UP, Bihar, West Bengal, Odisha, do not think about entrepreneurship and self-employment with the same level of prestige, perhaps, that they associate with a formal job. Entrepreneurship is a very Western India thing, because there has been so many success stories and role models in the
Right.
society, which is not there in UP and Bihar. Therefore, a youngster from UP and Bihar still languishes for those kind of jobs, and this is why you see so many people.
So you're mostly pleased with the budget? Mostly?
See, this part, youth part, is addressed, but I do not think the political part is addressed. See, here is a budget. Nirmala Madam will be presenting another budget in another 6 months' time. So this budget, the intent of this budget was, of course, there is nothing major fixed, major thing that needed to be fixed, but largely the narrative had to be fixed in this budget. Narrative, the farmers would be again heading towards agitation. This is what the opposition is all about. They want people on the street, and they are, they're not mincing words around it. They want people on the street. They will ensure that, narrative control of the BJP is no longer there. Why did more populist measures were not taken, especially when you had like a truncated budget for a shorter period of time, where you could have peddled more populist
So let me jump in. You think the budget was not political enough, in a sense, addressing the sort of new dynamics of power?
100%. I mean, if you're giving 6,000 rupees to the farmers, and you announced that in 2018, where is the indexing around inflation? You should have at least ensured that there is an upswing in the PM Kisan budget allocation. You did not do that. So how are you trying to ensure that the farmers of our country are able to meet the input costs, which was the real realization that the government had in 2018? This is why PM Kisan was brought in. Therefore, the allocation should have gone up. That constituent was not addressed effectively, and you will see them on the streets. Another thing is around, falling into the trap of, keeping the fiscal deficit as the only plain straight-jacketed agenda. Here, you had enough elbow room. The subsidy budget of the government has steadily come down. It is 1.4% of the GDP. It is rock bottom. So you had enough fiscal elbow room to actually press the pedal and create subsidy 2.0, because Modi ji is going out on public rallies and he's promising that I'm going to reduce the cost of cylinders, LPG cylinders, below 500 rupees. That was the poll promise. So if you have to do that, this was the time to do it. So I was expecting a subsidy 2.0 regime to come in and cover the political gaps that were left behind.
So in other words, your difference of opinion is more political. You believe the budget was a missed political opportunity, given the new realities, given the new aggressive opposition.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Baru, please go ahead. There's been a lot of focus among BJP supporters on the tax regime. While Nirmala Sitharaman argued that those under the new tax regime would save 17,500 rupees, the counter argument and angel tax has been abolished. There's been a lot of talk about the indexation of property, which I don't understand very well. So upfront, I'm confessing to that. But I do understand the hike in short-term and long-term capital gains. There's BJP supporters seem to be fuming about that. What do you say?
Well, I mean, a section of their supporters, the urban rich who are investors in the stock market, and there is an element of redistribution of income as a consequence of these changes. I don't see anything wrong in those who are investing in the stock market, in mutual funds, in stocks, etc., sharing a bit of that money to fund some welfare programs. That's the kind of redistribution that budgets should be doing, and that's all right.
So you don't disagree? You don't disagree with the hike?
No, I don't disagree with the hike. I mean, look, if those who have money in mutual funds, if we are asked to pay a little more in order to finance some program that will help farmers or the poor, well, that's a good thing. I would not have a problem with that. But that's not the issue. First of all, don't forget, the reason why the opposition calls this a Sarkar or Kursi Bachao budget is because the finance bill is the only bill which, if it voted out, would bring the government down. And therefore, the first and primary objective of the fiscal strategy of this budget was to ensure that both Nitish Kumar and Bihar and Chandrababu Naidu in Andhra Pradesh are happy, because if they vote against this budget, the government would fall. Right? So to that extent, the politics of the budget is very clear and visible, that you cannot afford you cannot afford to lose the vote on the budget, because then in our system, the government has to fall. Having said that, I have a larger problem. Every budget tinkers a little here, a little there. This is kind of stuff that finance ministers have done forever. But I think this is the beginning of a new term. And I at least was expecting a statement of policy that would tell us how we would get from an average of the last 4 or 5 years of 4 to 5% average rate of growth post-COVID period back to the trajectory of that Manmohan Singh set of 8%. 8% is the kind of rate of growth India requires to be able to generate employment, to generate revenues required for redistribution, revenues required for defense, national security, etc., etc. Many people have done the math. We have done the math in the past. And it was generally agreed that a country like India, if it grows at 8% real GDP growth, 6% inflation, 14% nominal growth, then that is the kind of trajectory we should be on. That is the trajectory we were on during UPA 1. Certainly from 2003, the last year of Vajpayee, to 2012, for almost 9 years. 6% inflation, 8% GDP growth. And I don't see any vision today to return to that 8% growth. We are satisfied with 6.5. And we are hoping that we can manage 7. So what is the growth strategy? At least in the first year of a 5-year government, that is what the government will last its 5 years, one would have liked at least a statement of a vision for the future. I can understand that 6 months down the road you'll get another opportunity. But this is not like 1991 where Manmohan Singh had to write his budget speech within a month and then 6 months later had another bigger statement. Yeah. This is a government that's been in office for 10 years. So they had all the time. They had all the time to think long term. And after COVID for 4 years, all of us have been writing, many people, including my friend Ashwini, Mahajan, everybody has been saying that we need a long-term strategy for Atmanirbharta, Atmanirbhar Bharat. What is that long-term strategy? Creating internships is okay. I see the point that Ashwini made that, our education system does not throw up employable working force, and therefore companies are being incentivized to give some internship, train them. This is like the Agniveer. But, all these are patchwork interventions. The long-term intervention has to be to promote industrial development. I'll end this initial thing drawing attention to what I regard as a very, very good, well-written economic survey. One of the things in this country in the past, the economic surveys were always written by independent-minded economists. It's not always happened in the last 10 years. But this year, Anant Nageshwaran has written a very good economic survey. It's worth reading. And there he quotes the Ishopanishad to say that one should learn to give up. The line, power is a prized possession of governments. They can let go of at least some of it and enjoy the lightness it creates in both the governed and the governing. It's a quote from the economic survey. What has the government given up? My friend Gurcharan Das has been going on and on for years talking about liberalization. Give up power.
Yeah.
We are again back to an earlier era, license, permit, control Raj, ED Raj, CBI Raj. Indian industry has been feeling stifled. I can say this as someone who spent an year working in FICCI, that Indian businessmen continue to feel stifled.
Okay.
So you're asking the question, why has private investment not gone up? And here is the economic survey. Give up.
So basically, in a way, interestingly, you and Rajat, for maybe different reasons, are making the same argument. The budget didn't feel new. It didn't feel new. It felt like not the first budget of a new government, but it felt like maybe the 6th year of the same government. And that is, in a way, what you're questioning. Let me actually, Gurcharan, come to you with one of the questions in response to what Ashwini Mahajan ji said, that they couldn't have done any better. While no government budget, says Binu Philip, can ever satisfy everybody, what does it mean to say they couldn't have done any better? If employability is the main problem, what was actually addressed in the context of of that in the context of need. Gurcharan, where do you weigh in on the budget, the politics, and the economics?
Well, let me really bring it back to the economics. And politics,
Mm.
I shall leave to my esteemed panel, a very, very distinguished panel that you have. Now, I happen to think actually that the government has learned a lesson from this election. That is to say that, every state, there was some local issue that determined the outcome of that state's election. But everywhere, there was an undercurrent of anxiety expressed
Mm-hmm.
about jobs. And both Rajat and Sanjay have brought this out well. The reality is that India's problem is not unemployment. Therefore, the employment numbers are not very useful to us. It's a problem of underemployment. And so we've got to actually, first of all, give our statistics better. People
Hmm.
really, what Mr. Modi was elected in 2014 for, his whole Vikas narrative, the code word, Vikas was a code word for proper formal jobs. That's what the young people want. And so I do think the reason why I say they've listened is, for the first time, they have, at least in the narrative of the speech, there was a connecting thread of jobs connecting to growth. You see, this was the mistake in the campaigning. Mr. Modi kept saying, "Oh, we're going to be the third largest economy in the world, etc." People
Mm-hmm.
don't people don't care about that. People really care about what it means to me. And here,
Yeah.
that growth was linked to jobs. But I also agree. In fact, the best the best statement that I found was hidden in this speech of a finance minister, which was that we are going to come out with a policy on employment, on growth. In other words, they're going to bring out a proper what Sanjay was concerned with.
Mm-hmm.
That Manmohan Singh used to always give Manmohan Singh's budgets were a statement of